In 2016, more than 11 million Americans misused their opioid prescriptions. 1 million used heroin. 2.1 million were diagnosed as having an opioid use disorder, whether due to heroin or prescription opioids. Since 2000, almost 300,000 Americans have died due to drug overdose, mostly opioids. Just in 2016, more than 60,000 people died due to drug overdose. Presently, 100 people die every day. United States is the largest consumer of prescription opioids in the world, with almost 100% of Vicodin and more than 80% of Percocet prescribed in the world is being used over here. So why is that? Well, the simple answer is that in the late 1990s, the big pharmas assured the medical community that these prescription opioids are fine, harmless, non-addictive. So the doctors started prescribing them at a much higher rate. But now we know that these are highly addictive and can kill. But the answer is not that simple, because there are many developed countries in Europe where much potent opioids are prescribed, but their rates of addiction and overdose is much less. So what's happening? And I would also like to point out that as the rate of opioid or other addictions have gone up, so has the rate of depression and anxiety and other mood disorders gone up proportionately. I think, and I believe, that more than the big pharmas pushing these drugs, it is the loss of purpose, loss of sense of control and attachment, which is the real driving force behind this epidemic. Why are we seeing disproportionately high rates of addiction in different counties and different states of America? Because these are the places which have much higher rates of poverty, joblessness, lack of education, leading to a sense of hopelessness and a sense of failure. The major reason that we are seeing so many struggling with addiction, and by addiction I just don't mean addiction to drugs, it can be addiction to food, to excessive technology, to sex. It's because we have become used to and demand quick fix for all of our problems. We have refused to acknowledge our fears, our emotions. Think about Luke Skywalker. He's about to face Darth Vader, okay? Oh, hold on a second, Darth Vader. I'll be right back with you. I'm going to pop him some pills. Now I'm going to fight you. No. He had to face his fears. He had to acknowledge his emotions, his apprehensions. And that actually made him better at facing Darth Vader. Now you would say, oh, that's just a fictional character. But I highly doubt that Abraham Lincoln had an option of being on the clouds rather than facing his worst fears head on with crystal clear mind and purpose. I believe that we have started our march on this evolutionary branch, which is going to make us more and more numb and disconnected to our surroundings and others. Why do we see so much removal from reality when we look around? And this lack of internal control, this lack of connectivity and purpose leads to drug addiction and mood problems. Connection to our surrounding and others is suffering. It's getting worse slowly and gradually, but steadily. We are living in an era of information overload. And this leads to constant vigilance and hyperarousal. And for many of us who are vulnerable, This can lead to anxiety and depression and other mood disorders, which can lead to drug addiction just to numb our fears and apprehensions. I would like to also argue that excessive technology and junk food are gateways to much bigger addictions. These were actually termed soft addictions by Dr. Judith Wright in her book, The Soft Addictions, in which she states that these are actually yearning for something missing in one's life. The point is that in order to become limitless, we cannot choose to numb our feelings and emotions. Our feelings, whether good or bad, tell us that we are alive. And when we acknowledge our fears and apprehensions and our emotions, we grow. We need to find better ways to address our anxiety and our stress, whether it's preparing for your SATs or giving a big speech. And we need to be especially cognizant of our food intake during stressful conditions and situations, because that is the time when we tend to stuff our face with the worst food choices available, because at that point, we are just trying to numb ourselves. And why is that important? Because we actually have two brains. And when we are popping pills or when we are engaged in some other addictions, trying to numb our upper brain, our lower brain, the gut, if it's healthy and working okay, it's not only going to clean up the mess which is already there, it's also going to prevent our upper brain from getting cluttered again. Our brain is nothing but a big blob of fat. Our hormones are all made up of cholesterol. So anything affecting the proper digestion, absorption, and utilization of fat is going to affect our mood, which can lead to addictions. 75 to 80% of our immune system is in and around our gut. 85 to 90% of serotonin, the feel-good, happy hormone, is not produced here. It's produced over here in our gut. So yes, indeed, our guts can be the gateway towards either making us limited or limitless, depending on how we approach our nutrition. The question, what can we do? Prevention is always better than cure. We start by developing a very strong sense of purpose in ourselves and in our kids. And this should be done as soon as possible, because when we have a purpose in our lives, we have an internal control of our lives. We are not wandering aimlessly through our lives. We don't seek outlets to numb ourselves. And when we have a purpose to live for, it's almost impossible to get addicted to anything. Increasing our engagement with others and our surroundings. Because more engagement means we have more chances of talking about our fears, our apprehensions with others. So next time, if you don't see your neighbor for 2 or 3 days, instead of texting, just go to their house, knock on the door, and talk. I would like to again emphasize the importance of nutrition and gut health in preventing and managing mood problems, which again can be the main gateway towards addiction. Hormone-free, non-GMO, organic food, emphasizing and implementing healthy eating habits starting from our home, then our schools, and our health institutions, extremely important. In the late 1980s and 1990s, Swiss had a huge opioid epidemic. They tried to crack on the sellers, things got worse. So they opened up, in 2000, they opened up these new clinics where the addicts were given opioids under the supervision of a nurse, but most importantly, they were given extensive social support, whether housing, job, counseling. So they gave you the drug, but at the same time, they tried to deal with the pain which led you to seek that drug in the first place. Since that program has started, there have been 0 overdose deaths due to legal opioids. I think It's time to stop blaming and shaming these unfortunate people who have succumbed to addiction. It's time to extend our hands and pull them out of this quicksand of misery. We are all miracles of nature. And miracle, by definition, is limitless. Thank you.